my name is Ash Hunt. I'm a global Chief Information Security Officer with over a decade of experience in information security across multinational organizations, and in particular, focusing on quantifying information risk and demonstrating return on security investment. In today's masterclass, I'm going to be talking about the criticality of strategic communication within information security and how to demonstrate justifiable return on investment to boards. Communication is one of the most frequently discussed topics amongst information security and technology risk professionals. In a technical discipline, it's easy to see why that's the case. There is a focus on technical skills, certifications, and experience, which actually belies the critical skill of corporate and strategic communication. It's rarely talked about in any CISP, CISM, MSc in information security. And yet, once security and technology risk professionals find themselves out of academia and thrust into public and/or private sector environments, it's one of the most critical skills and requirements to success. Frustratingly, few development handrails even appear to be offered to these professionals throughout their career, which inevitably leads to a pervasive struggle: how to speak the board's language. Naturally, we're selfish, and professionals in this space fundamentally desire to communicate for one clear reason, and that's to capture budget. Yet vulnerability scores such as CVSS and the metrics around tactics, techniques, and procedures of attackers won't cut it in board reporting. Not to your ExCo, NEDs, VCs, or PLC boards. None of them will hand over cash for technobabble they can't tie back to business value. Worryingly, there does still seem to be a persistent view within the security industry in particular that this is not our job. To tailor messaging and exercise persuasive influence with a view to capturing those much needed funds. Our job is only to protect, and you have to match our demands. Well, no, unfortunately that's not the case, and successful businesses do not operate in that way. In fact, broadly speaking, security professionals have had it easy. Every other corporate function has reporting requirements feeding directly back to business value and tied to those growth targets in the business. The cost center perception fallacy for technology and security has also allowed us to shirk this responsibility for decades. Now, spend scrutiny is increasing, and rightly so. Security professionals are hurriedly grasping for guidance on how to fix this. Fortunately, the answers are straightforward, well-versed, tried, and tested. Let's begin with why we exist. Our job as CISOs and security leaders is to support the business in growing and making more money. In reality, we should really be called revenue enablement officers. We are not there to say no. The business has requirements, sometimes demands, depending on your stakeholder, in wanting to achieve X, and we have to respond to that. To achieve that objective, it will invariably incur loss. Think of the multitude of potential exposures running a new service on a platform. We exist to help the business reduce that loss exposure, typically through controls. Now, those controls have an associated cost. So yes, as a function or a department, we're taking money from the business in one sense. But here's where we miss the trick. In taking that money, that investment and not a cost, we're increasing the success rate of X, of that business objective. And here's the key point. Business opportunity increases as we decrease loss exposure. This is what the board inherently understands, that trade-off between cost and opportunity. This approach, though, means little step change for the board, but a significant realignment in outlook for security professionals. We need to leverage mechanisms that can articulate extensive loss incurred from given scenarios and how probable that loss is to occur. We need to view our own budget expenditure in terms of control activity and associated costs. This approach aids both measuring security improvement and investment on return. It's also worth noting the wide-ranging requirements different executives and board committees have, both internally and externally. A conversation to the internal ExCo should be tailored very differently to a representation of risks to a federal authority, auditor, or even a client. Candidly, articulating security in business terms means full transparency with little room to hide. Now, deep down, this is what most security professionals fear. In good intent, since boards have little understanding of the complexity and tasks ahead for those managing technical risk. This is where the science of analysis hits the art of communication. It's a nefarious balance and target audience analysis is key. Know who you're pitching to and know explicitly what it is you're asking of them. Speaking to the board and justifying return on investment is helped through the frequent engagement with the business. Sit with them. Work with them. Understand what it is that they do. Be in their headspace, and then create the lineage between our technical initiatives and their outcomes. I had a direct experience of this with a global insurance firm. When we looked at their risk register, it had a prototypical top 10 list of cyber threats, which the board couldn't quite understand. When I looked through its board reporting around information security, it was full of vulnerability metrics that weren't tied back to the business opportunities that were supposedly being lost as a result of these vulnerabilities and risks. When we applied a bit of rigor around structured loss scenarios and looked at how probable different types of loss across their technology estate was to occur, the board saw a renewed vision, a horizon of outcomes through which they could pinpoint specific opportunities for investment that would manifest into change. Change not only in reducing their loss exposure, but increasing the success of business opportunities that they wanted to achieve. We can do this within all of the loss calculations within technology. When we're responding to an incident, how many hours does it take for your incident response engineers and analysts to actually remediate a particular incident? You can measure that cost to the business per hour. And the better you get at it, the more proactive you get at that process, the more likelihood there is for increased benefit to the business. The key point in that entire scenario was being able to tie every security initiative to a business outcome, and that the two are intimately bound always. Today's masterclass has focused on the critical importance of strategic and corporate communication in information security, and how justifiable return on investment can win you persuasive influence with boards and other key stakeholders in your business.